time to wake up is now. So many have been trying to get to the truth. Out to you groups like Anonymous, 911truth.org, and wearechange.org, and Infowars.com. And now you are here at another radio that's the Minutemen Radio with the Mark Fluid Broadcast, a place where truth and freedom ring. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Mark Fluid Broadcast. Tonight we're going to be talking to you about some really important information that you need. Some of you already know this. Let me explain what reality is. TSA have no authority whatsoever to grope your children. If you tell them to stop and they do not, a citizen arrest is more powerful. You can get them fired. They're going to learn to obey the law. And that's what it is. And you really have to hear this story. But let me explain something that is in the law. If any peace officer refuses a citizen arrest, it is a felony against the officer. We are the power, my friends, not the TSA and not the peace officers. They have to know the Constitution, the laws. Here's a story.
For you to go places, and half the time it takes is travel by car. For some trips, it will be faster than flying, without the pat-down.
It's the sort of security we've seen a lot of since 9/11 in places like airports, and now here at the bus station.
Specific, credible, recent threats that are causing what some believe to be these...
It's because a mother was willing to blow up the baby and the entire plane.
Right.
With the liquids. Right.
The Department of Homeland Security has not been forthcoming with the public about the true extent of radiation risk.
Advanced imaging technology would not have discovered the time for that at all.
The TSA is reiterating today that although its machines can store images when they're being tested, quote, all functionality to store, export, or print images is disabled.
Throughout history and in every culture,
whether or not you had the requisite intent to come up with something that can be considered perjury or a lie.
you should not believe anything else that they tell you.
It would not apply to those who are here illegally.
And you tell me that you're not, you weren't doing it because of an IG investigation. Let's go through a few questions here, Madam.
Well, wait just a minute.
Let me finish my question. Madam Secretary, let me finish my question.
That insinuation is not accurate.
Thing about them. You know about their penchant for child porn and the incredible statistical analysis that we've seen that they are predisposed to engage in crime. No kidding. Who else wants a job but criminals and control freaks? But in this report, I want to look at brown shirts of the federal takeover need to all be called on the carpet. Now let's just look at the latest lie that came out today. The Tennessean newspaper reports Nashville airport video doesn't show irate Senator Rand Paul. And they link to the video, and there is Paul being completely calm with the police. Now, Ron Paul on his Twitter, the New York Times talked to the TSA and said he wasn't even stopped for 5 minutes. He's a liar, and he was irate. And the police put in their report, part of this culture of lying, that he was irate. All lies by a group of people that lie and lie and lie some more. And then, of course, lie some more. And we have the White House siding with the some of the TSA lies that affect us all. Radiation. They've had studies back in the late 1990s from these same systems. That's why they weren't deployed all over the world. These things have been around for decades, that they're massively linked to different types of cancer. So Johns Hopkins and many other prestigious universities come out and put out reports the last few years saying, our studies show this stuff can give you cancer. I mean, the scans are so powerful, you can see the skeleton bone. The biology department comes out and says, our study actually says the opposite. And the TSA doesn't correct their mistake because it's not a mistake. They are a pack of criminal, out of control, 10th Amendment violating and 4th Amendment violating goons who are now setting up checkpoints on the highways of America. And that's why the feds don't care how much anger or how for the United States. They're going to hire your local police, it's been announced. They're going to run checkpoints, mobile vans. It's already happening. So you think you're just not going to fly and get away with this? Oh, sorry. There's plenty of people that couldn't hold a job at McDonald's that are going to be officer and agent TSA. And your wife's in deep trouble. And your children, they're in even deep, that they will submit to the touching and not say no. And what's the TSA say? They say, we don't think that's the case. And again, lie to the public and say everything's okay. For 3 years, we do not go in the clothes or even through the clothes and touch genitals of under 12. And then hundreds of videos come out and they say, okay, we're going to stop. First they say it's not groping and sexual assault. Then they say they're not doing it. Then they say they're going to stop doing it and continue it over and over again. Lying about radiation, lying about groping, lying about the sexual assault, lying about the statistics on how many of their people are caught engaged in every crime you can imagine. But then you see bizarre statements on the TSA blog and in their press releases saying there's hardly any complaints. Why? Hardly anyone is against this, and we only pat down 2%, which is a total lie. I fly all the time. I'm forced to as a journalist. I fly a lot. My crew flies a lot. And in hundreds of flights total, we've estimated that at least a third of the people where we fly are groped, including most people who are put through the naked body scanners. So they're lying to you about radiation, gets the video, and they admit they did it. But let's continue. A few months ago, a whole bunch of 85 and 90-year-old women, many of which couldn't even get out of their wheelchairs, started reporting that they were taken behind closed doors and made to take all their clothes off. And the TSA came out and said, you're lying, we don't do that. And then so many people went public that they said, well, we do take you behind closed doors and take your clothes off. We don't call it a strip search. And then, even in their apology, the women who've been assaulted by them say it's all lies. I mean, it's lies within lies within lies within lies. But what do you expect from a federal brown shirt goon force meant to dog train us and break our will to basically live like maximum security prisoners? They're coming to malls. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're lying to the American people, because we're seen as an enemy. And you lie to an enemy in warfare. This is a foreign banking cartel occupying the United States, and the TSA is their shock troops to bureaucratically go out there and train us to accept this. In just the last week, Homeland Security has come out and said, we're not just about terror. We're going to hire your local police. We're going to certify who can get jobs anywhere. We're going to set up checkpoints in your town. We're going to have spies all over Twitter and Facebook. We're going to have citizen spies on the ground recording what you say politically. They are recreating classical, hardcore despotism. This is 200 proof evil. This is certified as bad as it gets. It's conscious takeover. Oh, and also they said that the machines could not physically hold images.
The machines are not set to store images. They're not set to transmit images.
And then we got the manuals sent to us by insiders that said that when they test the machines, they look to see if they can see the genitals, and that is the marker they look for to make sure that the machine is tuned right, and that indeed all the images are saved, not just at airports, but at courthouses, and have been leaked and shared, and they pin them up on the wall, and when they see a good-looking woman that's come out, they put them through them. So they lied about saving the images. There have been cases in England where they come up to famous film stars and ask them in law that if someone's been caught lying before, don't believe anything they say, and they're criminals. What do they say about the devil? He's the father of lies. Whether you believe in the devil or not, this is a devilish attribute that we're seeing. This is tyranny. Why do we just accept when government lies about Rand Paul and says that he was irate and wasn't detained? Both lies. Why do we not get upset about that? Why do we trust people that act like this? The truth is, more and more Americans are awake. Congress has a 9% approval rating. The system knows we're waking up to them. So now they're taking the velvet glove off the iron fist and just going with the iron fist. It is time to reawaken the spirit of 1776. It is time to recognize it is criminal when the TSA violates the 10th and 9th Amendment and operates in our states. But it's even more criminal when they grope our children, our wives, and our husbands and harass our old people and make cancer patients get out of wheelchairs that can't walk and make passengers help get them out of their chair. This is assault, and it's criminal. It's sexual and physical assault. But it's also criminal when we put up with attempt to break our will is backfiring. Get this key report out to everyone you know. The future of our republic and the world depends on it because this corporate tyranny is being exported everywhere. And speak out against these criminals and let the TSA and their handlers know we're aware of their criminal takeover and stand against their terrorism against the American people.
Well, here's a couple of things that we're working on. Number one is expanding trusted traveler programs where people will get biometric cards. They've already supplied information. We know they are safe to travel. We can move them through the system.
Want to know what's going on? Want to get the inside scoop? Minutemen Radio, the Mark Fluitt broadcast, will give you the stories that corporate media mongers will not tell you. Want the truth? Then go to fluidnews.webs.com. That's fluidnews.webs.com. Now you can get good quality made gifts from true veterans. No more will you have to keep shelling out your money to the fat corporate mongers that all they do is can keep you down. The globalists want you to spend all your hard-earned money, but why would you? When you can go to the top Patriot stores around, and one of them are FEShopWorld.webs.com, a complete line of military local gifts designed by 100% American. Stop catering to the globalists, and stop catering to a crisis. Make a difference today. Go to FEShopWorld.webs.com. Okay, folks, TSA is not the only thing that's going on right here. We're going to go to the little press conference that LAPD was having on the Donner incident. Okay, there's a lot of things that's going on with this situation, and as I said, it is time, because in order to prevent absolute despotism, it is our right to do our duty to change this government, do it the right way, and make sure the people in there are going to uphold the Constitution and do what the people want. Forget the cartel, forget the bankers, forget the globalists. We're not doing what they want. We're getting the people. That's what we're doing. Here's the next story on Donner.
Los Angeles, where the LAPD is holding an updated news conference.
The Sheriff's Department, who lost a deputy yesterday in the tragic incidents that unfolded in the mountains of San Bernardino. There's a lot of apprehension today and any kind of celebration, because this really is not a celebration. This has been a very trying time over the last couple of weeks for all of those involved and all those families, friends, and everybody that's been touched by this Dorner incident. So again, I just would like to express our deepest sympathy from our department. Our heart and prayers go out to those family and friends and of those deputies who were injured and the deputy that was killed yesterday. With that, let me just give you some brief, bring you up to date where we are today with respect to the investigation. The investigation into the Dorner incidents and the homicides related to Christopher Dorner continue, and that will continue until the investigators have completed everything that they need to do related to that. The task force is still in place, and they will work until there's nothing left to be done. There's still quite a bit of work to be done on this. What transpired in San Bernardino is being investigated by the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, and so I have no comments on their investigation at this time. I can tell you that the LAPD has now moved back into a normal state of police operation. That began late last night and will continue now as far as normal patrol operations. The protective details, some of those are still in place, and those will remain in place until the department and those protectees feel safe. As you know, until that investigation in San Bernardino is concluded and we have a type of positive identification on what transpired up there, we still have some individuals in this department who are still in great fear. When your life and the lives of your family are placed in jeopardy and threatened with death, that's quite something to deal with. So we have approximately a dozen or so of those protective details that will remain in place at this point. All other resources have been returned to their normal functions. The city has not been on any type of tactical alert since early yesterday morning, and we will remain in that status until further. So at this time, that's about all I have in terms of the investigation. If there are some questions related to the Dorner investigation that I'm able to answer, again, I'm not able to comment on anything related to San Bernardino. Well, again, we have homicide investigations. The fact that the incident transpired yesterday, and, we won't speculate at this point whether that is Christopher Dorner or not. But even if it was to be Christopher Dorner, again, we have a case to close. Just because arrest warrants were issued and charges were filed in Riverside, there's still a case pending in Irvine, the double homicide, and so there's still much work to be done. We just don't stop an investigation because the suspected individual may no longer be available. Say that again. Okay. Yeah, again, that will depend on the condition of the body that's recovered. It'll depend on the forensics that are available and the laboratories that are available. I would not make any assumptions right now, but again, those types of identifications can be expedited in these types of circumstances, and I'm sure everything will be done to do that. No, this is a San Bernardino case. So the incident that occurred up there involving the shooting and the body that was discovered will be announced by the San Bernardino County Sheriffs.
As far as the reward goes, if he is in fact deceased, is that still on the table? And who would be entitled to the reward if he is in fact deceased?
What are the requirements?
Yeah, that will be determined by the city attorneys that are involved. The issuance of a reward, again, is for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of an individual. This is sort of an unusual circumstance. Certainly, there was information that was provided that was very beneficial yesterday, and that will be examined and evaluated by the people who deal with the rewards. So the Los Angeles Police Department does not issue rewards, so we are not in the reward business. Those are outside entities that issue those rewards in an effort to support the investigation.
Beyond the emotional and psychic toll of losing officers and deputies, has there been any calculation of the financial cost of all this?
Not as yet. I don't have any costs estimates in terms of what this particular investigation has cost to this point. I'm sure at some point those figures or an estimate will come out.
Can you say how long your investigation will go?
Well, our investigation will continue, again, until the investigators have been able to bring their case to a conclusion. And a lot of that will deal with the district attorney's office and making sure that we have covered every base. There's still witnesses out there. The thousands of clues that over 1,000 clues that we have, many of those are related to the investigation and to the murder and multiple murders. So those witnesses still are key pieces that need to be resolved in terms of the investigation and documented. We don't just stop a murder case simply because... Well, again, if it were your family that was placed in jeopardy, not knowing for certain that the person that was threatening your family is no longer around and the threat no longer exists, that's a concern. And so there are some families who are literally traumatized. And they have young children. They have people who have schools that their kids go to, and there's great fear still. So that's a trauma that they're going to have to recover from. I don't have any information related to accomplices or any other persons involved, but certainly those are parts of this investigation that we have to examine and look into.
Can you comment on what the feeling was like inside the headquarters building as the command staff and detectives were involved in this case watched the unfold on television yesterday?
like many of you, we were listening on local internet channels that allowed us to monitor radio frequency, and it was horrifying to listen to that firefight and to hear those words, "Officer down," is the most gut-wrenching experience that you can have as a police officer, because you know what that means. And tragically, we learned that it truly meant just that yesterday.
As far as identifying the body,
since you reopened this file, what is the possibility, or what if you find that he was telling the truth about this
Okay, well, I'm not going to go into that. We're in the very early stages, as Chief Beck has mentioned, of re-examining the allegations that are in the manifesto, so this is not the time that we're going to discuss that until we have more information on that.
Do you have information on what caused the fire?
I don't. Again, anything related to San Bernardino needs to be addressed to them.
What about the body? What kind of records, as far as DNA utensils, does the LAPD keep on former officers or current officers to aid in that?
Well, again, just like in any death investigation where identification has to be made, that is all done through the coroner's office, and the coroners have access to all sorts of records, not just those related to employment. Certainly, LAPD does not keep dental records when you come on the job, so there will be other measures that will be sought after to identify that individual. I'm sorry.
Personnel case still going to take place?
Is the re-examining of the person? Absolutely. That is a total separate issue, and I think we've made that clear that Chief Beck has great concern, and he wants to make sure that the public has a confidence in this police department that we are operating in a transparent manner and that the members of this police department are treated fairly. And if there's information that's developed or uncovered in that investigation that we need to address, we are going to address it. And he's very clear about that.
What is the investigation process? Does this involve his family at all?
Well, I will tell you that in most identification cases, the families of the deceased are very much a part of that. And so the coroner's office deals with that, and they seek whatever type of information can assist in that identification.
Any comment on the wallet?
I don't have any information related to San Bernardino. The advisor and legal counsel, many of you know, Mr. Chaliff has a very reputable history in terms of civil rights law, and he is going to oversee it, as well as the Inspector General's office, which is an independent reviewer that oversees all personnel complaints, all officer-involved shootings related to the police department, and that's where it is at this point. Your question related to tactical alert, we are not on tactical alert. That ended, the last tactical alert we had was early yesterday morning. Okay? Thank you very much.
Want to know what's going on? Want to get the inside scoop? Minutemen Radio, the Mark Fluid broadcast, will give you the stories that corporate media mongers will not tell you. Want the truth? Then go to fluidnews.webs.com. That's fluidnews.webs.com. Now you can get good quality made gifts from true veterans. No more will you have to keep shelling out your money to the fat corporate mongers that all they do is can keep you down. The globalists want you to spend all your hard-earned money, but why would you? When you can go to the top Patriot stores around, and one of them are FEShopWorld.webs.com, a complete line of military local gifts designed by 100% American. Stop catering to the globalists, and stop catering to a crisis. Make a difference today. Go to FEShopWorld.webs.com. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now you heard from the Donner. What we're also going to do is we're going to tell you about this financial collapse. I'm telling you right now, get gold and silver. Forget this frigged up currency. Do not listen to them. Know the rulings of how they can't confiscate certain gold. That way you have the money. You have the money. Make these elites beg like the little dogs they are. You're going to make sure that you have the wealth. They don't. I'm going to tell you, listen to this broadcast. Listen to this information because it's time to stock up in gold and silver. Get away from this phony currency, Federal Reserve note. It wasn't real money until it was backed up by the gold. That's when John F. Kennedy had the shit right. Okay? Nixon, they all fucked up. They're all idiots. Every single friggin' one of them. They need to back it by the gold standard, but they're too stupid to do it. Invest in gold and silver. You heard this part? Now you're going to hear the part of all this currency from Japan and down. This is the information you need. Here's the stories.
I would imagine that the dollar will lose its value. Yes, I mean, it already lost 95% of its value since the introduction of the Federal Reserve, but it took 100 years. This time around, they'll do it in 10 years. They have become more efficient.
Mark thinks they're going to create inflation. Now, the precedent of Japan suggests that these guys are muppets. The precedent of Japan suggests that when it comes to the organization of economic affairs, if you allow leverage in your society to breach a certain level, we're not sure what that level is, but let's call it 200 or 230% of GDP, then what happens is monetary policy doesn't work. Fiscal policy doesn't work. So Japan is an example where we've had hideous politicians and hideous intervention. They've had helicopters. They have distributed free money to all of their citizens. They built bridges to nowhere. And prices are falling, and they look set to fall further.
This decade, NIA believes the U.S. will experience an outbreak of hyperinflation that will cause the U.S. dollar to become worthless. Most economists believe the U.S. is more likely to experience a lost decade of deflation, similar to Japan after the bursting of their bubble economy. In Japan, even with prices deflating, many Japanese today are being forced to live in internet cafes or closets.
In Tokyo, there are hundreds of cyber cafes like this one that offer overnight deals. You can stay in your own cubicle with unlimited net access, free drinks and an easy chair to sleep on, all for about £8. And without a place to stay, for Nagasaki, this is better than sleeping on the streets.
This was home for Hidefumi Ito. The size of a closet, it had what he needed most, an internet hookup and computer to job search. Ito rented this net room for around $20 a day after he lost his art gallery director job, his expensive home, and went bankrupt. Then his wife and 3 children left him.
With average GDP growth of 10% in the 1960s, 5% in the 1970s, and 4% in the 1980s, Japan's GDP grew to the second largest in the world. However, during the years 1986 to 1991, a bubble formed in Japan. The Nikkei stock index nearly quadrupled in 5 years to reach a high in 1989 of 38,957. Altogether, between the years 1955 and 1990, Japan's stock prices appreciated 100 times in value, and land prices increased 70 times in value. By 1993, Japan's bubble burst with both stock market and real estate prices being cut in half. Throughout the 1990s, Japan experienced deflation, high unemployment, and no economic growth, which led to the Bank of Japan deciding to lower interest rates in 2001 down to 0%. Despite 0% interest rates for many years, the Nikkei fell to a 26-year low in October of 2008 of 6,994, a shocking decline of 82% from its high 19 years earlier. A large part of Japan's savings has been wiped out, and many Japanese can no longer afford to retire.
Tetsuko Katayama is part of a growing trend proving to be at least a short-term fix. At 68, she is one of more than 3,500 elderly people working at this burger chain alone. The oldest is 84. All across the country, people are giving up retirement to keep making ends meet. While that's good for the economy, many elderly people would logically rather be enjoying their golden years somewhere else.
Japan's official debt to GDP ratio is currently 203% compared to the U.S. debt GDP ratio of 91.5%. This has led to hundreds of NIA members asking us why we believe the U.S. will experience hyperinflation, while Japan has experienced decades of deflation. About 95% of Japan's debt is held domestically within the country. Although Japan's savings rate has declined in recent years, down to 3% due to their aging population and their retirement age being raised to 65, Japan's savings rate averaged above 10% for many decades, and during the mid-1970s averaged above 20%. The Japanese built a large pool of savings that allowed their government to borrow from its own citizens. The U.S. government, on the other hand, has borrowed $4 trillion from foreigners, including nearly $1 trillion from Japan. Foreigners currently hold about $10 trillion in U.S. dollar-denominated assets. Because of the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency, these dollars are being hoarded by foreigners and aren't chasing goods and services here in America. With the phony U.S. economic recovery beginning to lose steam, NIA believes the world will soon wake up and realize that U.S. budget deficits are poised to explode to new highs this decade due to the rising interest payments on our national debt and rising entitlement spending. With Japan's declining savings rate, the Japanese barely have enough savings left to fund their country's own budget deficits. How on earth will Japan continue to lend money to the U.S. so that we can fund ours? They can't, and they won't. The loss of our second largest creditor will be the breaking point for the U.S. economy. The U.S. debt Ponzi scheme will soon come to an end. To better understand why the U.S. is poised to have hyperinflation and won't get off so easily with a lost decade of deflation like Japan, let's imagine that all countries simultaneously experience hyperinflation and all fiat currencies worldwide become worthless overnight. Imagine that all debts worldwide are wiped out and the world starts fresh tomorrow with new currencies. Which country do you think will prosper based solely on real economic fundamentals? A country with Toyota and Honda, two automobile manufacturers that combined for a net income in fiscal year 2008 of $23.2 billion. Or a country with GM and Ford, two automobile manufacturers that combined for a net loss in fiscal year of 2008 of $45.5 billion. If it wasn't for government bailouts, GM and Ford would be out of business today, and without the U.S. having the world's reserve currency, it won't be possible for the U.S. to make any more bailouts in the future. If we start over from scratch, Japan will still have its television manufacturers like Sony, Mitsubishi, Hitachi, Panasonic, Funai, Sharp, and Toshiba. The U.S. doesn't have any television manufacturers, and Americans won't have any way of importing televisions. Japan had a huge trade surplus in fiscal year 2009 of $56.2 billion, while the U.S. had a gigantic trade deficit of $374.9 billion. Both countries import most of the oil they consume, but while Japan can afford to pay for its oil by exporting automobiles and televisions, the U.S. has only been able to afford its oil imports by exporting inflation. In just the first 5 months of 2010, the U.S. had a $7.6 billion trade deficit with Saudi Arabia, more than double its trade deficit with Saudi Arabia of $3.5 billion during the first 5 months of 2009. Saudi states now own $235.1 billion worth of U.S. treasuries, which NIA believes they could be getting ready to dump. The Saudi Arabian Monetary Agency just reported last month that their gold reserves have more than doubled to 322.9 tons, up from 143 tons of gold reported in March. Clearly, Saudi Arabia believes their U.S. dollar reserves are about to lose their purchasing power, and they are trying to hedge against it by diversifying into gold. Agriculture is the one bright spot for the U.S. economy. While Japan is the world's largest importer of food and has an agricultural self-sufficiency rate of only 50%, the lowest among developed nations, the U.S., on the other hand, produces enough agricultural products to be entirely self-sufficient. Unfortunately, if the U.S. can no longer afford to import oil, there will be a huge drop-off in U.S. agricultural production. Oil is essential to modern agricultural techniques used in the U.S. today. Oil is used for operating field machinery, manufacturing inorganic fertilizer, irrigation, crop drying, raising livestock, and pesticide production. The biggest agricultural use of oil is getting the food to our supermarkets. 81% of Americans now live in cities and suburbs, compared to the worldwide average of 49%. On average, most food in your supermarket travels 1,500 miles before getting there. Even if Americans cut their personal oil use for transportation by 75%, we still won't have any oil left from our domestic oil production to produce and ship food. The U.S. budget deficit in fiscal year 2009 as a percentage of GDP was 9.9%. However, using the same accounting principles that American businesses are forced to use, our real budget deficit in 2009 was 30.3% of GDP because we saw a $3 trillion increase in non-cash obligations for entitlement programs. This is more than 3.5 times higher than Japan's budget deficit to GDP ratio last year of 8.5%. The real U.S. debt to GDP ratio is also a lot higher than Japan, including unfunded liabilities for entitlements and our government's guarantee of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Total U.S. obligations have now reached $80.9 trillion, or 560% of GDP, nearly triple Japan's debt to GDP ratio of 203%. Japan's economy hit peak consumer spending in 1990 and entered their lost decade from a position of strength with a balanced budget, high savings rate of 15%, even turning 46 in 2010. The U.S. has just passed peak consumer spending and has entered this new decade from the weakest possible position with a real budget deficit of $4.3 trillion, a savings rate of only 4%, a real unemployment rate of 22%, and a real debt-to-GDP ratio of 560%. The U.S. has entered this decade from the complete opposite position that Japan was in during the 1990s, so instead of seeing deflation, NIA believes the U.S. is guaranteed to enter into hyperinflation. If you would like to not only survive but prosper during U.S. hyperinflation, sign up immediately for the free NIA newsletter at inflation.us. You will receive weekly articles from NIA with the facts and truth about the U.S. economy and inflation. Becoming educated is the most important first step all Americans need to make in order to survive hyperinflation.
In the end, I can reconcile this thing. I think ultimately Mark will be right, because he always is.
Want to know what's going on? Want to get the inside scoop? Minutemen Radio, the Mark Fluid broadcast, will give you the stories that corporate media mongers will not tell you. Want the truth? Then go to fluidnews.webs.com. That's fluidnews.webs.com.
I want to bring Ted Anderson up here. Ted, gold's it's almost gone up to $1,800 today. They're saying quantitative easing's behind that, unlimited quantitative easing, $80+ billion a month given to the private banks. The banks are announcing record profits again off our tax money we've got to pay back. But the media says we're lazy and that taxpayers need to pay more. And Romney said last night, hey, I'm not going to cut a bunch of taxes to Obama. So there you go. If they slash taxes, revenue would explode. What Kennedy cut the one tax bracket by 50%, the other tax bracket by 35%. Tax receipts more than doubled. Why can't they do what JFK did, Ted Anderson?
Well, you know, reducing taxes does raise revenue for the government, but it's political suicide. Plus, also, like you, I believe that they're trying to drive this thing right through the floor. It's getting so obvious now it's not even funny. This morning, when I started looking at gold hit $1,800 an ounce in Europe in the futures market. So far today, the spot price of gold, $1796.20 at its high. I mean, it's melting apart. The Mario Draghi, the president of the central bank in Europe, started talking about the $367,000 jobless claim in the United States that was just announced, and the gold prices just started to rise like crazy. Germany right now is considering a gold standard to get away from the United States' inflation. You know, right now we're in this QE4 or QE3, and we're just driving the value of our currency right through the floor. The way that they describe it is, here's how they say it. It says gold is money, according to the Dutch bank, says it would go further, however, to argue that it could be characterized as good money as opposed to bad money, which would be represented by many of today's fiat currencies. And then he's talking about good money leaving the countries and disappearing into hordes, while the bad money comes in by the bucketfuls. You know?
Exactly. Translate that, Ted. The elite are buying gold, farmland, firearm stocks, military stocks, and exiting basically everything else, raw material stocks, but exiting everything else while they pump the world with devalued crud because they know what the effect's going to be, hyperinflation.
Oh, absolutely. You can see all the central banks moving into gold, and you can see all the elite. As a matter of fact, George Soros himself has been moving into gold. The people who know what's going on are getting into gold. And then they're telling the general people, the common folk, you know, you stick with the money, stick with the currency, stay away from gold and silver. It's not good for you. It's only good for us. Let me tell you something. We're like sitting on the Titanic, and the captain is saying, "Hey, Mayday, put on a life preserver. We're going down."
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done has been right. Kurt Nemo's article is up at Infowars.com. Kurt Nemo, Alex Jones. War with Iran started 5 years ago, but then it breaks down how the wider hot war is just slowly escalating in front of us. But it's like if you have a gas top stove like I do, and it goes from 1 to 10. 1 is simmer, 10 is on full flame. Yeah, 5 years ago it was on 1 flame. And then 4 years ago it was on 3 flames. And then 2 years ago it was on 5, 6 flames. It's now up to like 7, 8 flames, and they're turning it up. People are like, where's the war? I don't know. Drones bombing everybody, huge proxy wars, Turkey shelling Syria, U.S. troops, they're massed. I've got family in the military all been sent over to the Middle East, told get ready for a huge war. It's already going on, and it's happening right as all Hades breaks loose. Now, I got Ted up here. Obviously, he was 30-plus years in gold and silver, 15-plus with Midas Resources. I just bought some gold and silver from Ted just Monday. And I'm not selling the gold. I bought it $300 an ounce, and I'm not selling the silver. I bought it $5 an ounce from Midas Resources 12 years ago. And I know it's a steal at the price I'm getting it, in my view, because I know global devaluation is accelerating. Here's a pitch here. It doesn't really support the network. It's a lost leader, but you can get $2 silver of just a beautiful make. Ted can tell you about that for $72. That's at cost. Ted bought them when they were lower, so that's how I can do that now. With Obama Deception, American Dream film exposing the Federal Reserve and the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, incredible, and Dishonest Money, an amazing book that we also sell for $19.95 at Infowars.com. That's free. 2 films and a book free with the $2 silver. So go check that out at MidasResources.com, or there's a banner on Infowars.com. Ted, I mean, the point is people need to get into gold and silver, in my view. And, I mean, I only promote what I believe in. That's one reason we're so popular, is I promoted things that have been successful, because I do my research. What I do, I tell people to do. I mean, that's win-win-win. That's what a Christian does. But expanding on this, I know that you've sold out of most of the gold and silver you bought months ago. So what's the silver and gold at price-wise? I know that's how you pass on these savings to people. For what it is today, and when are your prices going up? And briefly, because we're about to go to break, what are some of the gold and silver super radio specials people can call 800-686-2237 and get?
Well, I mean, obviously, the best deal I have is the one that you described. $72 gets you a book, 2 videos, $2 silver. You're not going to beat that anywhere. I mean, crying out loud, you can't buy the $2 silver for that anymore. Price of silver's gone up to $35 plus an ounce now. So you're just they're not available. But we do have many other great offers. And right now, presently, you can pick up the Frank coin at $388, the Walking Liberty half. Very affordable. One of my favorites for everyone out there, $17.07. We have the Lakota Nation coin. People still love that. It's at $43. There's just a lot of things. Some of you are very concerned about gold confiscation. It's a controversial issue, I realize. But we carry the $20 Liberties at $21.54. For those of you who like the bullion, which I love as well. Currently, right now, the Canadian Maple Leaf is at $19.57.
I bought buffaloes and pesos, as you know, Ted. I like Mexican pesos. It's the most gorgeous coin I've ever seen. But I just bought some buffaloes. And again, those are non-confiscatable under the different rulings, and that's why it's important. Coming up, I'm going to give the post-debate breakdown, which is one of the most historical debates we've had in recent history. I mean, it is two globalist puppets, but they are battling each other over the levers of spoils, over the goody goods of looting the American people and bringing us into the New World Order. They are fighting over who can rearrange deck chairs on the proverbial Titanic. So that is coming up, and your phone calls. I'll give the number out in the next segment. But going back to Ted Anderson, Ted, we were getting into a plug here for gold and silver. I mean, I'm surprised. I mean, I know you've sold thousands of them the last few weeks. $2 silver for $72. You can't even buy those in the market, two of them for that, with 2 free films and a book. I mean, that's joke level good, Ted. I mean, I feel so good promoting that. How long until you have to go up on that? I know you went up a few weeks ago from 63 to 72. How long, Ted?
Well, I'm going to hold out on this one as long as I can, Alex. It'll probably be sometime this weekend. I'm guessing that gold will hit over $1,800 an ounce here very soon. Silver will be encroaching $40 an ounce. I'm simply not going to be able to sell $2 silver, give away all these other goodies for $72 delivered when the shipping alone is, it's $6.50. I mean, but it does educate the people. It's a great way to get new people started with precious metals. Like you say, it's a loss leader, but I think it's more than a loss leader. I mean, it's always been my intention to educate the people, get people informed, understand the fiat system. That's why it's so geared toward that. Your Obama deception video is great. That book by Joe Plummer, The Dishonest Money, is right on target. I mean, it's just one of those ways for me to get the information out. And so we'll be holding it until this weekend. But if you want to get involved, let me tell you something. At $40 an ounce silver, I'm not going to be able to sell $2 silver for $72. Put in 2 videos and a book. It's just not possible. I would be out of business. I'd be broke, and you'd have to go find it somewhere else. So yeah, no, it's going to have to go up. I'm going to hold it through this weekend for sure.
800-686-2237. Now, I mean, again, briefly, explain to people, Ted, the difference between confiscatable gold and non-confiscatable. I mean, I got the non-confiscatable U.S. Mint stuff just because I know it's so popular and it was so close to melt at the deals you have.
Well, what people don't realize is that the government plays a lot of games. I mean, you can buy a U.S. Gold Eagle and not have to worry about the 60-45 ruling and not have to give up a Social Security number and get a 1099 form when you're selling. On a Krugerrand and a Maple Leaf, you do have to do that. Bags of junk silver, you have to give up the Social Security number, but if you buy Mercury dimes, you don't have to. It's just this crazy game that the United States government plays, trying to influence one over the other and so on and so forth. Confiscation happened in 1933. Anybody that's trying to tell you that it didn't is lying to you. Franklin D. Roosevelt closed the gold window and confiscated gold on a Monday. He got into office on a Friday.
But now we're seeing those coins being confiscated. What are the ones they're grabbing that when they find people with them? The ones from 1933 that are worth millions apiece?
There's another example of confiscation. It brings it right back to date. The 1933 coin was never issued. So somebody had some of those coins, so obviously somehow they got out of the mint. Well, the dummy who had the coins went back to the mint and said, hey, are these authentic? And then they confiscated from the guy. This happened recently. I mean, they confiscated the silver from the people that were trading the Norfed dollars, and And,
it's incredible. 800-686-2237. The brokers there are great guys and ladies that can answer all your questions. But tell them the Alex Jones radio special, that is the absolute secret lost leader stuff. You've got to have that. Not just radio special. Alex Jones Radio is the creme de la creme, wide spectrum of the best deals. You're getting the deals I get when you ask for that, ladies and gentlemen. 800-686-2237 for the lost leaders. All right, thank you so much, Ted Anderson. Ask yourselves, what are you doing in this time of great challenge? What are you doing to unlock minds?
Want to know what's going on? Want to get the inside scoop? Minutemen Radio, the Mark Fluid broadcast, will give you the stories that corporate media mongers will not tell you. Want the truth? Then go to fluidnews.webs.com. That's fluidnews.webs.com. Alright, folks, I just want to tell you this information from the financial collapse to the TSA to the Dahmer story. These are stories that you need to know so that way you can make the logical decision. Okay? Do the research. It's out there. You can research anything you want, from Skull and Bones to the Bavarian Grove. Every single item that we talk about, you're able to research. And not one person has ever been able to prove me wrong. Because now you've got thousands of stories, thousands of alternative media, just on Spreaker alone, just on Blog Talk alone, just on all over the place, okay? I'm telling you, alright? Get into gold. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Actually, no, we will be back Wednesday. But remember, you can listen to these 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on fluidnews.webs.com, right here at Spreaker, or at minutemen.listentomyradio.com. Okay? All these stories, 3 stations, 3 websites. Get the info. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. Want to know what's going on? Want to get the inside scoop? Minutemen Radio, the Mark Fluid broadcast, will give you the stories that corporate media mongers will not tell you. Want the truth? Then go to fluidnews.webs.com. That's fluidnews.webs.com. Now you can get good quality made gifts from true veterans. No more will you have to keep shelling out your money to the fat corporate mongers that all they do is can keep you down. The globalists want you to spend all your hard-earned money, but why would you, when you can go to the top Patriot stores around, and one of them are effyshopworld.webs.com, a complete line of military local gifts designed by 100% American. Stop catering to the globalists, and stop catering to a crisis. Make a difference today. Go to effyshopworld.webs.com.